I'm Rob Go. I'm one of the founders of Next Few Ventures, and I'm here talking to Matt Lauzon, who is the founder and CEO of Gemvara. This will hopefully be one of a series of interviews of some of the rising stars in the Boston tech ecosystem. And by way of background, Matt is founded Gemvara as a student at Babson. He raised money from Highland Capital and Canaan, and as of today is also has Balderton Capital as an investor. So congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
So for the benefit of those watching, can you let us know, how you came up with the idea of Gemvara and a brief description of what the company does? And then it'd be interesting to just hear how you got the attention of investors at the very, very beginning.
Yep. So I founded the company a few years ago while I was a student at Babson College, and where one of the cases where we've pivoted in that the vision's always been to deliver people a perfect piece of jewelry for them, but originally we talked about going B2B, and then we went direct to consumer at Gemvara.com, which is where we're having this success. When I was senior year at Babson, what we did was we entered a business plan competition, and that helped because I got a ton of buzz, and like to joke about the fact that I think we are the only undergraduate team to ever win the undergraduate, and then at the same time hire a graduate team to place in that competition as well, which also helped generate some buzz. But that was happening at the tail end of senior year, and what we had done was actually line up some angel investors who were willing to back us to execute on that plan that we had written. But at the same time, Highland announced the Summer at Highland program, and about at the same time, a bunch of people had mentioned to Bob, hey, here's an interesting company over at Highland, and then had also mentioned to us, oh, you've got to meet Bob in Highland. And it's kind of a funny story, which I'm not sure if Bob knows or not, but what we did was do a bunch of research to figure out who are a bunch of people that we know that we also know that Bob knows and respects, and we had them all call or email Bob at the same time within a multi-hour period. And it was funny because Bob noted when we got there, he said, I'm not exactly sure what you guys do, but I know that if you're able to coordinate all these calls coming at the same time, then you're at least driven enough and networked enough that it's worth spending some time with you. And from there, I think we built a relationship and pushed ahead.
So how did you recruit somebody? So you recruited a pretty senior person at the time, from somebody who had just exited a venture-backed company. Again, you're a 20-something-year-old college student. How did that happen?
It's interesting. I think one of the most memorable hires was, we raised, we're just in the process of closing our seed funding. It was around there, and we recognized that we really needed an experienced, seasoned CTO, and we had found somebody, and we heard that they were open and looking for a new opportunity, and I actually think I spammed them a bit through LinkedIn, but at the time you could actually reach out to people even if you didn't know them or have their email address by using the other field, and in my little whatever amount of characters it was, I basically said, hey, we're changing a huge industry, think you'd be a great fit, would you be willing to meet? And he agreed to meet. I believe his first words after he closed the door behind him were, is this really a jewelry company? To which I told him it was. But I think 3 hours later and a lot of diagrams on a whiteboard, what we both felt was that this was a huge opportunity, and there was I think some good chemistry between us. And we went through a process of what I would call once again sort of building confidence in terms of before and after he joined the team.
So one of the big parts of our ethos as investors at NextView is backing what we call authentic entrepreneurs. And we really like entrepreneurs who live and breathe whatever is the space that they're starting a company in. And you are not an authentic entrepreneur. So tell me, why am I wrong in my approach?
So I don't think you're wrong. I think that authenticity and passion are critical to do what you need to do to build a business. I'd say in my case, I'm really authentically passionate about two things.
Jewelry.
One is building an unbelievable team to solve huge problems every day, and getting best of breed people. And the other is, I think that commerce in general is fundamentally broken. I think if you look at e-commerce, even in the last 10 years, there really hasn't been all that much innovation. And I think we're at the front of something with jewelry that is redefining commerce in a big way. And that, I wake up every morning about and I'm extremely passionate about. And when you start seeing what that new experience translates into in terms of the reactions that people get, when they buy this really personalized jewelry, it does get you really exciting. And, I've learned to love and be passionate about jewelry, but, it's really those two driving passions. And I think without those, probably wouldn't be able to build this business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's your biggest, looking back at your first year of building this company, what was your biggest mistake and your biggest regret?
That's a good question. I think the biggest regret, if we were starting over from scratch today, I would have been much more data-driven right from the get-go. And at the very beginning, I don't think we were as data-driven as we need to be, and as we are today. And I think if we would have been, we probably could have much faster, with less resource, tested different concepts to arrive where we arrive today. The flip side is, I think, fortunately, one of the great things being entrepreneurs, you're always learning and seeing new things, and I think going through some of those experiences helped us, be a stronger team and a stronger company.
How can you be data-driven in the beginning? We have no customers, not that much to look at. I mean, Fred Wilson had this blog post about how in the beginning, when you're building a product, you're sort of gut-driven, and later on you're data-driven. So how can you be data-driven from the beginning?
So I think there's, I think you can be data-driven early on, and I think there's data in the literal sense, and getting tons and tons and tons of actual data that you can mine through. But I also think there's just having a very metrics-driven culture from the get-go that says we establish very clear purpose before action, and we know that a goal not measured is a goal not achieved. And at the beginning, I think we could have said, for instance, perhaps with 10 stores doing more of these types of things to better understand what's going on, we can gauge success or failure much quicker. Or early on, we built the technology in such a way where it was harder to get actual user level data on how people were acting the way that we wanted to get it or the way that we have it today. And I think we could have benefited from that much faster.
So you referenced this earlier, but there was a little bit of a change in your business model. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the mistakes that you guys made as a business, how you came to terms with it, and changed what you were doing because of that?
Yep. So if as I mentioned before, when we originally founded, the approach was a little bit different, but the vision was the same, of giving people this perfect piece of jewelry. And if you look at what we do today, we basically are the only place where you can go and every piece of fine jewelry is available in multiple metals and many gemstones. And what people do is use that to tell stories about their life, and get this great experience. When we first founded, we made a couple of assumptions that weren't spot on, and we learned a lot from. And I think without having learned, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today. The first is the assumption that we said, people need to go to a jewelry store, or at least need to have the option to go to a jewelry store in order to get comfortable buying a piece of jewelry. The second was that if you could build a technology that made it so seamless and easy to design your own piece of jewelry, people would be comfortable and want to do that. And what we found on both fronts, that it wasn't the case. So in terms of the jewelry stores, I think what we found was that so much of what we do today, or what I would call me-commerce, in terms of using data to match you with perfect results, or giving you the option to customize, or providing high-touch customer care, you can't do unless you control all the process. And there's a lot of ingrained thinking about what the in-store experience should be and is in a jewelry store. And of course it works for many people, but we believe that we can get more and more people comfortable buying online. The second piece was around that if you could enable people to customize, they would. And what we're finding is, what's really important is people getting the piece exactly how they're looking for it. But many people have never thought about customizing a piece of jewelry. Many people have not thought about what it would take, and for a lot of people it's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So what we find is the not only just offering the ability to customize, but also what I would call this seamless discovery, like what Netflix does with movies and matching your results, and high-touch customer care like Zappos. we're able to use these three levers to match you with the perfect piece, which is much different than what we expected when we first started off.